like to be remembered?
As a winner.
Formula One makes its way to Europe at one of the most historic tracks of all time, the Imola GP. This track holds a lot of history. Unfortunately, not all of it is amazing. We lost a legend of the sport, Ayrton Senna here, and we ended up losing a rookie, Roland Ratzenberger. This really highlighted how much Formula One needed to increase safety measures, and unfortunately came at the cost of 2 F1 drivers' lives. The track itself has not changed too much other than the straight from that 1994 season, but they will always be remembered, hence why I made the intro. But other than that, this Imola track has history that will be remembered forever in good ways as well. It started actually the rivalry of Prost and Senna back in 1989, where they made an agreement whoever was ahead at turn 1 will not attack the other, but of course, like it happened a lot while they were teammates, that agreement was shortly cut right after this GP. It also gave us one of the very first 2021 battles of Max and Lewis, and it was quite the classic going into the first turn while it was wet. It's instant cinema when you get these two together. Another great moment to remember was Fernando Alonso versus Michael Schumacher in 05 and 06. In 05, it saw Fernando Alonso defending like a lion and actually taking his first championship this season. It was finally his time to be an F1 World Champion and not Michael Schumacher anymore. But in 2006, Michael got him back. He ended up actually beating him. Despite having the worst tire degradation, he held him back and ended up winning the GP. One funny moment that I remembered was that actually the Sauber car in 2022 was, if not the 4th or 3rd quickest car that year. Bottas ended up finishing 5th, but he was only 6/10 behind George, who got him like right towards the end. And if it wasn't for a 12-second pit stop, then Bottas actually had a chance of possibly being on the podium, which if you look at the Sauber car now in comparison to the start of the regulations, it's a night and day difference. But let's talk about the track, Imola. I think it is an amazing track. The only problem is the overtaking. That is quite crucial nowadays in Formula One, and you do not get it a lot here as this is an old circuit and the layout is just not made for overtaking. But we are getting our first C6 tire. Yes, this is the softest range that we can have now. They're trying to possibly make this a different race. I'm not sure if it will. I'll give you a couple reasons as to why, but it's going to be interesting to see how fast these cars are on the C6 tire, C5 for the medium, C4 for the hard. And if you actually look at how F1 and really Pirelli has laid out this track, the left side all 2s, right side all 3s, and I can pretty much agree with that. Tire stress is about a 3, downforce is well a 3, track evolution, there are a lot of cars that come here throughout the season, so the track evolution isn't as big like the track we were just at in Miami. And really, it's just about putting it together. You got all kinds of corners here. We're going to have upgrades galore, so each team is really going to be trying to find that dial of a perfect setup and overall balance, because one mistake and you're in the gravel trap easily. The curbs are pretty bumpy here. You got a couple of sausage curbs that are nasty for the bottom of the car, but can gain a lot of lap time if you do it correctly. This track notoriously has one stops. Now, introducing the C6, it's going to be a bit interesting as to what teams do. It's typically a medium to a hard, that's about it. And it's mainly because going into the pit lane, it takes so much time to come out. It takes much longer than a lot of other tracks. Usually it's around 26 to 27 seconds. This is somewhere above the 30-second mark. So it's hard to justify taking the car in for 2 stops unless there is a big tire differential. There is possible rain, so that could make it interesting. Imola, to me, is always a track that's better with rain, but not if it's drying out, because if you have one dry line, then we're going to see literally 0 overtakes. There's plenty of headlines actually coming into this track. One of them that I wanted to talk about is that Horner could be possibly losing his job. To me, I think this is complete BS. These rumors are kind of circulating around Twitter from some people that have talked about it, but to base it off of an upgrade that's coming, considering his CV and really winning all these championships with this team and leading it from that pathetic Jaguar team that it was to what it is now, I can't really see why Red Bull would take a chance on a different team principal and why he should lose his job, because they're still pretty competitive. They are arguably the second fastest car. If you actually look off of race pace, they are the second fastest car. So I don't really believe in these rumors. But another big part of these headlines is going to be the upgrades around the teams. For Mercedes, they believe This could be the step they need to actually be competitive and fight from track to track to be on podiums more consistently, and they believe these upgrades will make the difference for the season. Red Bull, as I just talked about with Christian Horner, is bringing a big update package. They also believe they can now fight with McLaren. Unfortunately for Ferrari, they're not bringing as big of a package as they were talking about earlier in the season. That's mainly going to come to Spain. But let's go into my predictions for the Imola track. Let's start off with worst teams. It's going to be a bit of a gamble here because there's going to be upgrades across the whole grid. I still think Sauber is going to be in P10. They haven't announced anything. That's why I haven't been able to cover or say anything about them. The car actually looked pretty decent in Miami. Their tire wear is still pretty bad. There is a car that arguably was the 10th fastest, which was Aston Martin, but stick with me here. I think Alpine's going to be in P9. They also haven't announced upgrades, possibly could be bringing stuff to Spain. They are weak on certain tracks. As I stated, with no upgrades coming here, I think it's going to be tough for Alpine to compete with the others if all those upgrades actually end up becoming that and making the car better. The next team is Haas. It's a bumpy track. They suffer a bit with porpoising right now, and it's super close. I actually think that you can interchange pretty much all of these teams with the exception of probably Sauber, even though they're pretty close. I don't want to say that they're just so far behind like they were in 24. They're still arguably sometimes the 9th, maybe even the 8th fastest depending on the track. But it's going to be a close call. You can put Aston Martin in P10 and I wouldn't even say anything against it. They have an upgrade coming, a pretty big package. I believe they're finally going to have an upgrade for the car though. Now, the 3 best teams, I still think it's going to be McLaren. This is going to be a track that's going to be very tough to beat them at, but I will talk about how they can be beaten here. The next team is Mercedes. I believe they're going to take that car to the next level. They've already arguably been sometimes the 2nd fastest car, especially in qualifying. I mean, Kimi put it up on pole in sprint qualifying and almost did it in main qualifying. I do believe that car is getting quicker. Kimi is getting faster. It's also one of his favorite tracks. And I'm going to put Red Bull in P3. I think in qualifying, we're going to have a banging session. It's going to depend a lot on the drivers. That's actually why I like this track. It's a bit more technical. You put a wheel into the gravel, your lap is done. It's going to matter a lot and depend a lot on the drivers putting every single sector there together, and if you can make those tires survive, which obviously the McLaren is much better than the others on. Now, looking at surprise team, going off of what I've been talking about, to me it's going to be Aston Martin. We're going to see an upgrade. It's their new wind tunnel updates, and it's not made by Dan Follows, which is the guy that's kind of put this team in the mud. He also did give them a bit of success in 2023. I also made a video arguing that it's kind of the success from the 2022 technical director and then partially Dan Follows as well. But these are new updates made by a different leading team over there. It's not Adrian Newey, obviously, but I think it's going to take a step up. They are also going to test at some point in the season 2026 parts. I kind of forgot to talk about that in the upgrades video, but expect very unique parts towards the end of the season being tested on the Aston car. For Unchained Driver, I just want to put it out in the world. I hope that Franco Colapinto is going to be the surprise of Imola. I believe he's going to outqualify Pierre. As crazy as that might sound, I think he's got it in him. And if he does it on this track, that will be very proving and telling that he deserves the seat that he's been given. He did a great job against Alex back in that Williams car in 2024, and out-qualifying Pierre in Imola, a track that he's tested more than most drivers on the grid, would be a big feat for the Argentinian. I think he's going to have an incredible debut. For worst drive, I actually haven't given it to him at all this year, but I just think it's going to happen. Due to it being a qualifying formula, to me, Lance Stroll is going to be the worst drive. He's actually had a pretty good season. He's been up there with Fernando, which I can appreciate. I like that he's been more consistent in the season, but qualifying has still been weaker, and Fernando has outqualified him, I think, on every single race. And this track is almost impossible to overtake on. And I mean, literally, it's pretty much a bigger, glorified Monaco. So considering Lance Stroll's track record in qualifying, I do believe he's going to be far behind and not be able to make up any places. For best drive, I'm going to put it up for George. He's been pretty decent around this track for a while now, and I think that Mercedes car is going to be flying with these new upgrades. Now my top 5 for Imola. Let's start off obviously from P5. I put up there Kimi Antonelli. Now he had a great Miami GP weekend. Whether you want to say it was a bit of bad luck or unfortunately being a little too ambitious into turn 1, depending on what you want to say. The rules of racing this year are a bit unique if you ask me, and I'm not sure who you can really give the corner to there, whether it's Oscar Piastri or Kimi. I would give it more leaning towards Oscar, but regardless, that's talking about a previous GP. Kimi had a very good weekend, probably his best of the year so far, especially in qualifying. I do believe it's going to be another good weekend here in Imola. He's just got a lot of very good, experienced drivers that are going to be ahead of him. In P4, I'm going to put up Max. I do believe the car can be quick here. There's still those traction zones where I think the McLaren is just much quicker. And for that reason, I don't think the Red Bull is going to have the pace to out-qualify the McLaren drivers. In P3, I got Oscar Piastri, the man on a streak. He has not been that good here in Imola since he's been given the McLaren car. In 24, it was Lando fighting with Max. Oscar was nowhere near. And I think this is one of those tracks that just doesn't really suit how he drives. But the guy's been on fire. You gotta give him props. Amazing drives by Oscar. In P2, believe it or not, I put up Lando. Yes, so P1, it's gonna be a Mercedes driver. I believe George Russell is going to win the race. Now, hear me out before you put a comment. It's going to be a qualifying GP. So I think George will have the pace to actually finish up on the highest position and keep that highest position. It's probably going to be a one stop again. The only thing I could see helping out McLaren is if it rains. You need to be so much quicker than the other car to actually overtake. It might make for some spicy moments. George Russell is pretty good at defense. He's got a very similar defense style like Max himself. So it's going to be tough for Lando to pass. But Lando has been very good here. I mean, his track record is insane. The podiums he's gotten like in 2022 were very impressive. And I do believe this track is going to deliver. It's going to be very close amongst really the top 5. Arguably could be like a 20-second gap between P5 to P1, which would be amazing. But I'm not sure we're going to see a lot of overtaking. So that's my reasoning for putting George up there. He's been great in qualifying. Miami wasn't so hot. I do believe he's going to come back. I'll qualify Kimi, and he will take his first win of the season. Pretty ambitious. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments below. I know a lot of you guys are not going to be a fan of me putting up George Russell based off of performance, but it's a prediction at the end of the day. I'd love to hear yours down in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world. And peace.